All right, peeps, as we head into the first full week of the Nintendo Switch 2 being on the market, we've got a big update and some awesome news to go over with the system, with big AAA games, in addition to how the system is performing in specific regions. So we're going to talk about that and so much more. Plus, we've got a really cool Nintendo Switch 2 giveaway, which we're going to talk about in just a bit as well. But let's go ahead and jump right into it here. We're starting off with my man, Mr. Pierre 485 via Gyro JVFR, and I'm sorry if I mispronounced any of that, especially the Gyro dude or the Geo dude. Sorry about that. But either way, we've got some information that's coming out. Apparently, that the Nintendo Switch 2 in France has broken records, actually shattered the record that the PlayStation 5 has held. So the information that we have right now is not confirmed, so just keep that in mind until we get the official confirmation from Nintendo of France. But this is information that seems to be on good authority. Otherwise, Mr. Pierre 485 definitely would not be reporting on it. So apparently, the Nintendo Switch 2 has sold over 200,000 units in France. This makes it the fastest selling console in the country. That doubles the previous record holder, the PlayStation 5, at 107,000 units, and it apparently generated over 130 million euros in 4 days. Now, Mario Kart World has a staggering 95% attach rate. So whether it's the bundle or people buying the game separately, everyone is picking up the Nintendo Switch 2 for Mario Kart World, which I definitely expected that to be the case, despite some people trying to tell me that it's not a great launch title, or you're seeing some of that stuff online. But Mario Kart 8 Deluxe was the best-selling Nintendo Switch 1 game by a country mile, selling over 68 million copies on the Nintendo Switch 1, and if you count the Wii U version of the game, it sold well over 70 million copies. So Mario Kart World was definitely the right title to go with at launch if these numbers do hold up, and of course we'll see how it does in the Japanese Famitsu sales, which is going to be going down on Thursday, so look out for a report on that. But yeah, France is the biggest region in Europe for Nintendo, so this was to be expected. But you also have to put into context here that the PlayStation 5 launched in 2020 when there was a chip shortage and a global pandemic that did put a hamper on sales and the amount of units Sony could even ship out to stores. So definitely the PS5 probably would have done better than that 107,000 units, but I also think that it's incredibly impressive that the PlayStation 5 actually did 107,000 units and broke the record despite the chip shortage that they were having and global pandemic. So that's actually pretty impressive overall. The Nintendo Switch 2 doing over 200,000 reportedly here, if it holds up, I think that is also incredibly impressive, but also to be expected. We felt that there could be records broken in France coming out from some of the different retailers that were talking about the rate of pre-orders they were getting, but now we actually have that converted into potential sales here overall. So not 100% confirmed until Nintendo of France does that, but it does seem like it's looking pretty good for the Nintendo Switch 2 starting out in France, one of their best regions. And we do have an update on another country over there across the pond too that we're going to get into. But before we get into that, I want to make sure that I let all of you guys know that we are giving away a Nintendo Switch 2 console. So if you want to have a chance to win a Nintendo Switch 2 console, all you have to do is subscribe to the channel, drop a comment below, and check out the description to the link to the community page right here on PlayerEssence. Answer the poll question on there, drop a comment there, and you'll have a chance at winning a shiny brand new Nintendo Switch 2. The winner will be picked on June 16th. So go ahead and subscribe and enter in. All right, let's get into the next topic here, and that is a Banjo sighting, or more like a potential Banjo-Kazooie sighting. Shout outs to Andy Robinson, who used to work at Rare, and he's talked about the potential for a new Banjo-Kazooie game. And here's what he had to say on Twitter. Hearing Rare's new leadership could now be massive for the chances of a new Banjo-Kazooie. So this is something that I think would be great because people have been asking for Banjo-Kazooie for quite some time. We've seen these old school platformers from the 90s come back and have great success, and early 2000s come back and just do really good. Croc came back, obviously Crash Bandicoot came back and did great when it comes to the remastered trilogy in addition to Crash 4. So I do think that Banjo-Kazooie could come back, and I feel that they're actually in position to have a really, I would say, incredible type of fan base for the game, because technically you can sell it on PlayStation, you can sell it on Xbox, you can sell it on PC, and you can sell it on the Nintendo Switch 1 or Nintendo Switch 2, however you feel like getting it done, because now Microsoft is going more of a third-party publisher where you're going to see their games on a variety of platforms. So I do think that Banjo-Kazooie has a better chance and optics in today's day than maybe like 10 years ago when people were still asking for Banjo-Kazooie like on the Xbox One or something like that. So I do feel that things are looking up or better if this is the case what Mr. Andy Robinson has to say about Rare's new leadership. Now, Rare is raking in the cash when it comes to Sea of Thieves. They just announced another expansion at the Microsoft Games Showcase, so I think that Sea of Thieves will be their bread and butter for the foreseeable future, but I do think that another team can handle Banjo-Kazooie and actually add some variety to what they're doing, because really it's just been Sea of Thieves and that's pretty much it for the last number of years. Everything else has been MIA or just never materialized. So I'm hoping that Banjo-Kazooie gets something done, because it needs to. The fans definitely deserve a new Banjo game. It's been way too long since Nuts and Bolts, and I think that the fans would appreciate if they went back to the classic roots of the N64 game and brought some 3D platforming goodness back to the fans out there. So what do you guys think about a potential follow-up or new game for Banjo-Kazooie? Let me know in the comment section below. But now we're going to move on to another big Nintendo Switch 2 title, and that is Final Fantasy VII Remake. Also newly announced for the Xbox Series S and Xbox Series X. And we did get more of a lockdown at that show when we can expect Final Fantasy VII Remake to come to both platforms for the Nintendo Switch and for Xbox Series. So Final Fantasy VII Remake is officially coming to the Nintendo Switch 2 this winter, and you could expect it to really be a solid port based off of what we've seen so far. Now, we still don't have details on different types of performance or graphics modes or resolution and frame rate and stuff like that, but we do know that it's using the Intergrade system. It's Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade. It's not the base, just typical PlayStation 4 version of the game, so you're getting a little bit better lighting and some other things. However, they're not done with the game, so it could look and run better by the time that we see the game at the end of the year for this winter. Now, this winter could stretch into next year, but I'm guessing they want it to be a 2025 release based off of the timing from where the game was at Nintendo's show, in addition to where they had it at Xbox's show. They also shadow dropped Final Fantasy 16 on the Xbox platform, so yeah, they definitely want to go super multi-platform when it comes to Final Fantasy, and I'd expect the next major Final Fantasy game to also be super multi-platform on PlayStation, Xbox, PC, Nintendo Switch 2. I think it's going to be everywhere, and honestly, this is the right call right now for Final Fantasy. They tried the exclusivity deal with Sony, and I think that they felt that there would be a bigger adoption rate of Final Fantasy in Japan when it comes to it with the PS5, and that never really materialized the way that they were hoping it would have. And Square Enix had to completely redo their whole gaming division. They completely reorganized, got a new president, committed to multi-platform. So it's like a good and a bad thing. Sometimes you got to have some things that don't work out your way to see where you need to go in the future, so you can kind of course correct and adjust. And this is probably the best route for a game like Final Fantasy. And I would say in particular, when you're talking about a game like Final Fantasy VII Remake, having that appeal to a large Japanese base with a large consumer base that's actually going to buy the hardware is very important. And the Nintendo Switch 2 is probably going to be that system for the foreseeable future. So it just makes sense to have your biggest or one of your biggest IPs on the platform in your home country that's going to probably do the best. So I understand where Square Enix is going from that standpoint, and it's going to be awesome to see the final product of Final Fantasy VII Remake on the Nintendo Switch 2 and Xbox Series this winter. So what do you guys think about Final Fantasy VII Remake coming to the Nintendo Switch 2 this winter? Let me know in the comment section below. But now I want to kind of circle back to the sales discussion that I talked about when it comes to EU areas. And yeah, looks like we've got the first UK software sales charts for the week ending June 7th, 2025. So just a couple days here when it comes to the sales tracking. And the UK isn't Nintendo's strongest market over there in Europe, but it's still a market that does some numbers. And it looks like Mario Kart World and a lot of the third-party games did pretty good for the launch. Now, it's just the launch, and obviously all of the core Nintendo fans are rushing out there and buying the games. And remember, this is only physical units. It's not digital as well, so the digital eShop charts can be tracked, but a lot of the same games are popping up on pretty much the worldwide eShop charts for almost every region. But Mario Kart World was #1, probably by a good margin as well. But second place, Hogwarts Legacy, of course, that's already been doing really good. Cyberpunk, good to see that in at 4th place. Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, that was at 37th the previous week. The Nintendo Switch 2 edition bumped it all the way up to #5. But Street Fighter, Breath of the Wild also making it back in at #7. Bravely Default Flying Fairy, good to see Square Enix with launch day support as well. Plus, the Eternal Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. It's like, hey, look, we're going down, but we're not going that much down. That's in at #11, so very cool there too. So overall, seems like not a bad launch at all when it comes to the Nintendo Switch 2 system and the games. Now, we don't have any specific numbers for any of the titles or the hardware from the UK, and we usually don't get that. We usually just get the overall sales numbers that Nintendo will put up. They really don't specify certain regions a lot, so don't expect that going forward. And I'm not expecting like a record-breaking launch for the Nintendo Switch 2 in the UK. We'll see what happens. If it does, that's great. But the UK, once again, has always been not necessarily their best region, but still a region that's respectable overall. The Switch 1 did pretty well, so I think that the Nintendo Switch 2 can have a decent showing in the UK, and it's off to a nice start, at least here with the different games. I'm expecting Mario Kart World to consistently be a top 20 type seller, just like Mario Kart 8 Deluxe years and years and years later is still on the list here. So what do you guys think about the opening week for UK and the sales? Let me know in the comment section below. But now we're going to move on to the final topic here, and we're going to discuss the big AAA games that potentially could be coming to Nintendo Switch 2 being announced at a Nintendo Direct maybe sometime soon, because some people were wondering, wait a minute, hold up. There is a 10-year deal for Call of Duty when it comes to putting it on all platforms, right? That was part of the deal overall, and the official announcement didn't say the Nintendo Switch 2 or the Nintendo Switch 1, so people were confused. However, a Kotaku reporter is stating that they have heard that Microsoft and Nintendo are still working on getting Call of Duty on the Nintendo Switch 2. So there will be an announcement, and it states that they are working to put together something pretty soon and concrete in the near future. So what I would expect, and what I was saying on Twitter, and I made a video on it when it comes to people getting kind of upset about third-party games and all that, I think that the biggest thing for me, at least, is just getting the launch done, getting the launch and the third-party games out that are out. And yes, there's a bunch of new ones being announced, but those games have been in development for quite some time. We just got to get caught up on this launch, get the games going, and let developers get their dev kits, the ones that didn't have them initially at least, get them and start developing the games on there and getting some ports running and looking good, because it is a different architecture. It's not x86 like PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series, so giving them a little bit more time. Now, I do think that yes, Call of Duty Black Ops 7 or something like that is coming to Nintendo Switch 2 probably this year, and we're going to see something at a Nintendo Direct where they announce it. It's a pretty big AAA game, but I think it's going to be very similar to the Borderlands 4 type of announcement, or even the 007 First Light type of announcement, to where it's going to be at a Nintendo Direct. They want to make sure that they have it front and center. They probably want to film some type of creator's voice or some stuff like that. Call of Duty is a huge franchise, so I would expect more of those creators' voices with certain big AAA games, and a lot of those games to be announced at Nintendo's Directs, because I think that we're still going to have 2 Directs in 2025, one probably sometime in June or July, and then another one sometime in the fall, maybe around September. So there's going to be a number of third-party games announced for those. Even if you go back to the launch year of the Nintendo Switch 1, people were kind of concerned with third-party stuff there, and I was trying to explain it to them. And then what happened? System did well. Obviously, there was games in development, and then later that year, we got stuff like Resident Evil, we got Doom. Obviously, we knew about Skyrim. There was Wolfenstein. There was more and more games that were coming over, and over the course of time, we got a ton of big third-party games. Some of them kind of crusty here and there, but overall, definitely a lot more than we got on Wii U, Wii, and the Nintendo 3DS. So I think we're going to see a similar pattern here with the Nintendo Switch 2, but definitely better quality when it comes to the ports in comparison to some of the other systems that they're coming to as well. So what do you guys think about everything that we discussed here? A lot of big Nintendo Switch 2 news, some great stuff to go over. Let me know in the comment section below. All right, guys, that wraps it up for this video here. Thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, click that notification bell, and check out my other Nintendo Switch 2 RPG content and more right here on screen. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you guys for the next one. Peace.